Hey everyone, how's it going? Today we're going to be covering everything you need to know about how to learn and master Ambessa. Now, out of all the Champions riders released to the game recently for top lane, Ambessa is the best addition in my opinion, because not only does she have a lot of great carry potential and very fun to play, she's also one of the best blind pick bruiser champions in the game, where traditionally for top lane, if you want to have a S tier blind pick, you have to play champs like Aurora or Gragas or Maokai, where not a lot of players that play top lane love those champs as much as the duelist or the fighter bruiser champions. So Ambessa is a great addition to your champ pool for anyone that wants a great blind pig that also can carry games consistently. So if you feel like you want to speed up your learning, add it to your pool, or just improve on the champion, then this guide is perfect for you. Starting off with the runes. Now, Abyss has 3 rune pages to choose from, but there is one that is the strongest of all in the majority of situations, and that is her Grasp of the Undying page. Now, the reason Grasp is so good on her, where when you play champs like Renekton or Aatrox you always take Conqueror, is mainly because she applies Shield Bash and Sudden Impact so well. So the main point of this page is abusing these short trading runes, so you're going to be running Grasp with Shield Bash, Second Wind, and Revitalized. You can run Overgrowth if you feel like you enjoy the extra scaling, but Revitalize does give you a lot of extra early game combat power. And then with the secondary runes, you're going to be taking Domination with Sudden Impact and Ultimate Hunter. And like I said, if you do want to mix up the runes, maybe you want Bone Plating versus Jax, that's okay. But make sure you're taking Sudden Impact and Shield Bash no matter what. You could go Demolish technically into really easy tank matchups, maybe like Malphite. I'd still advise against it, especially on your first 50 games or so. Just take Shield Bash and Sudden Impact and dominate your lane as much as you can. Now, the runes in this tree are going to be the Adaptive Force, Double Adaptive Force, and Flat HP. You can take scaling into easier matchups like Cho'Gath or Maokai, something like that, but Flat HP and getting stuck in early game, getting to your Eclipse Spike unscathed, is going to be very important in volatile lane. Now, for a second rune page, we do have Conqueror with Triumph, Haste, and Last Stand. You'll never change out any of these 3, so that makes it simple. But for your secondary runes, you can choose between Resolve and Domination. I would prioritize Domination, as Sudden Impact is just overpowered, so Sudden Impact and Ultimate Hunter. But you can go Resolve with Shield Bash and Second Wind or Bone Plating, especially Bone Plating into matchups like Jack. Shield Bash, Bone Plating can give you a lot of value. A part of it is personal preference. I would prioritize the Sudden Impact, as it is just overpowered on this champ, but feel free to take Resolve Tree, especially while you're learning the champ. And again, double adaptive with flat HP or scaling HP into easier matchups. Now, when should you take Conqueror over Grasp? And in my opinion, that depends not only on the matchup, but also the elo bracket. Because if you're playing in Masters Plus, especially, I'd say just take Grasp pretty much every game, as doing really well in lane is extra important, and the players you play against will be better at laning, so having the extra tools from Grasp, the extra trading power, is more important. Where let's say you're playing in Platinum or maybe in Silver, the players are going to be worse. You might be able to win lane against them with Conqueror anyway, and that's the Conqueror rune, especially level 9 with Eclipse, scales a lot better and gives you a lot more carry potential in the later points of the game. So elo bracket is a variable. The other is the matchup. So there are matchups where you need to be taking long trades into. So for example, a Mordekaiser, if you can't take a long trade into him and he just rips you with ulti, you're not really going to have the damage to fight him back. So Conqueror can do great into matchups like Mord, where you need that long trading power, or even a matchup like Zac, where if you just short trade against him, he sustains it all back. But again, you can take Grasp every game, and I do recommend it, especially when learning. But if you're playing in a bracket below Emerald, the value of Conqueror is increased a lot. Or if you're playing in matchups where long trading is very important, then you can take Conqueror. A matchup like Camille as well, it can be decent. I'd still recommend Grasp. I'm just saying, for example, Camille locks you down with ulti, and she's trying to short trade with Grasp. If you have Conqueror, you can beat her in a long trade, especially Eclipse versus Triforce. If you have Conqueror, you're going to win if you play it well. So there are a couple of variables in mind. A part of it is personal preference as well, so you're going to have to make that decision for yourself after trying it. But again, early on your journey, just take the Grasp page every single lane and go from there. Now, for her third page, we do have Electrocute, and you're going to be taking Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, or the Zombie Ward. Zombie Ward if you're scared of the jungle, Eyeball Collection if you're not, and Ultimate Hunter. Now, with the secondary runes for that, you're going to be taking Resolve, again, getting Shield Bash and Sudden Impact, and this page is best in 2 range matchups, where Conquer is not very useful, and you can't really get short trades from Grass either. So if you're visiting a champion like Kennen, or a champion like Teemo, champs like Aurora, Electrocute can be a lot better for you than Grasp or than Conqueror. Again, you can take Grasp into any matchup you like, it's never going to be bad, but Electrocute with the full lethality build, and we'll talk more about the build later, can be really good into these really squishy range matchups, especially if their whole team comp, is squishy as well. And regardless of your page, double adaptive and flat or scaling HP, depending on how volatile the matchup is. Moving on to summoner spells. Now, for your first spell, it is pretty straightforward. Regardless of your matchup or your elo bracket, you are going to be taking teleport every game, as it's just so important for lane and mid game, especially TP flanking. There's no reason not to take it. Now, for your second spell, you can decide between Ignite, Flash, and Exhaust, with Exhaust and Flash being very rare, so you will be taking TP Ignite around 95% of the time. The reason you don't need Flash on this champion compared to other bruisers like an Aatrox or a Renekton, picture Aatrox Q3 Flash, very impactful, Renekton Flash W, really impactful uses of Flash on these champions, but in Bessa, you're going to be ulting in from 2 screens away anyway, you don't need Flash, and you have so much disengage, it's hard to get ganked early game, you can hop away, similar to Camille, where if you get ganked and your ear's up, you can't really die, you E away, unless you're versus a Poppy or something like that. So the times where you would take Flash on Ambessa would be very rarely, but into neutralizers, you can take it if you like. And to champs like Poppy or champs like Tahm Kench, you don't really need Ignite anyway. I'd still recommend taking it every game, to be honest, but it is an option, especially early out. If you're used to playing champions that take Flash every game, it can be a little bit of a learning curve. But again, get used to taking TP Ignite, as it is going to be the standard on this champ. Now, for Exhaust, you can take this TP Exhaust into two matchups come to mind. Champions like Riven, champions like Kennen, where Kennen, especially in the mid game as well, it's good for lane if he ults you. Exhaust is great, of course, good for the 1v1, but in a team fight, if you just dump Exhaust on him, it makes his champ pretty useless, apart from the little bit of CC. So it can be really impactful against him, can be great against Riven as well, but you can take Ignite into Riven anyway and try to bully her down and fight back, but Exhaust can be great into those two champs, as once they go in, they're kind of stuck in there, so Exhaust can really neutralize their power. Moving on to your item builds. Now, for your starting item, between Doran's Blade and Doran's Shield, it really depends on the matchup and how confident you are on the champion, as Doran's Blade does scale a lot better, as you get the lifesteal that interacts with your ulti passive as well, for later on, and it is good for long trades, but because Ambessa is a short trading champion, you will need to go Doran's Shield in a lot of matchups, so if you verse champs that can poke you down a lot, range matchups is easy, like a Teemo or a Cannon, just go shield. But if you verse melee champs that can poke you often, like a Gragas or a Gangplank, something along those lines, you will need to go shield. But if you can get away with D-Blade, especially if you have good mastery on it, you definitely should, as it is good to be greedy with this item if you can, especially because your early lane is relatively hard to get punished in the majority of your melee versus melee matchups. Now, for your first buy, you just want to be building towards Eclipse pretty much every game. The only time I would go Healing Cut is versus Warwick or versus Zac. So if you can get 800 gold on your first recall versus either of those two, you can go Healing Cut. But other than that, do not delay your Eclipse for boots, for Healing Cut, for anything. Just go Eclipse as fast as humanly possible. Now, when you do go boots, you're going to want to be going over Tabbies, Merctrids, or Swifties, where Tabbies should be the default. You can buffer Ambessa's ulti through the majority of CC, or through every CC, and we'll talk about them all later. So Merctrids, of course, they're also overpriced, so not the go-to unless you just need to. If you verse Cannon top, Lissandra mid, Leona, champs like that, a Mumu somewhere, you definitely just need to go Merctrids, but most of the time you will just be going Tabbies or Swifties. Swifties will depend if you verse matchups where the slowing can be quite annoying, like a Nasus or an Olaf, but also if you base with enough gold for it. So if you base after your Eclipse and you have 1k gold, you can just slam Swifties, but if they have a heavy auto attack comp like a Graves, Kindred, or maybe ADC mid, Yone mid, something like that, you should just go Tabbies most of the time. Now for the first buy, it will be Eclipse probably 85-90% of the time, but you can go Cyclo Sword first into squishy range matchups that can't really fight you back. So matchups like Aurora, matchups like Teemo, where you can just force onto them and you would rather one-shot them, then kind of trade in and out. You can go that, but I still would recommend Eclipse most of the time. If you're ever unsure, do go Eclipse, as the side lane power as well is so much lower on this champion if you don't have it. So definitely default to Eclipse most of your games, but Cyclo Sword into really squishy range matchups can be good as well. Now, for your second item, this is where the controversy may come in. There is a big discussion, I would say, between the Dalady and the Bruiser Ambessa build, where both can work depending on the game. And if you do take the Conqueror rune page, the Bruiser build value goes up, as you want to be fighting for a long time. But I would say most of the time, the Lethality build is the best on Ambessa, so we'll go through a full build later on, but Eclipse into Cyclo Sword into another Lethality item is going to be the way to go most of the time. I do strongly recommend your 2 core being Eclipse Cyclo Sword most of the time, especially when learning this champion, but the other options, if you do want to go the Bruiser build, just make sure you go Shojin instead of Black Cleaver, because Ambessa gets 30% armor pen from her ulti. This is level 16, but even level 11, where you won't have your second item, So let's say you're building Cleaver, you normally get it around level 13, level 14, and then 2 levels later you have 30 armor pin, but even at that point you have 20. So very similar to a Darius, where you got your armor pin, you don't need Black Cleaver, similar to a Mordekaiser, you get your magic pin, you don't need to build Void stuff. So the exact same thing on Ambessa as well. Prioritize Shojin over Cleaver. Now you can go more, especially into double AP top jungle. I've even seen a more first item into AP top jungle. That's also an option. The only reason I didn't list it as a first item is it's very, very rare that it'll be good, so I don't want to confuse you. But a lot of the time, Eclipse into more into, let's say, Aurora top and an AP jungler like Lilia will be the way to go. But you can go DD if it's also full AD, triple AD top side, you can go DD second. But I'll just say go Tabbies if it's a normal comp, let's say Lee Sin jungle, Renekton top, and they have a normal mid laner like a Victor, just go Ninja Tabbies and go the Eclipse into the Cyclo Sword build in the majority of your games. Now, as for your third item, if you're snowballing in the game where you went Eclipse into Cyclo Sword, which you should be doing most of the time, you should be building that, you can go into Profane Hydra, especially if you have hard engage CC, beefiness on your comp. So champs like Rel, Leona, maybe from Jungle Zac, something like that, that can go in first. The Profane Hydra will be a great third item, as you're going to one-shot pretty much everyone in that game if you have that type of build. Now, some other options for lethality, you can go Edge of Night. I wouldn't go this very often, but it can be good, especially if they have major abilities you want to block. So maybe they just have a Karthus, or they have a Wayfair, where if you jump in, you don't want to get hit by it. Lissandra, stuff like that. It can be quite good, but it's quite easy for them to pop it in my experience. So most of the time, you'll be going Profane, or even Serpent's Fang, if they have a lot of shielding. So champs like Ivern or Janna running around, maybe a Riven top, with Eclipse in her E, Serpent's Fang can be a great build. Now, other than that, if you feel like you need a bit more survivability, maybe your team entered you and you've got like a Graves and a Sona, some weak champs that aren't going to get stuck in with you can go Shojin third to be a bit beefy. I'm actually not a big fan of going Shojin in the lethality build, but it is an option. I'd advise against it most of the time if you do want a bit of beef. You can go Sterak's or a full defensive item, but Shojin can be a decent middle ground because it gives a lot of HP. Now, other than Sterak's as a kind of filler item, especially if you need a bit of tenacity, you can go Randrons if they have multiple crit champions. So if they have a Yone or a Yasuo mid, Tryndamere top, stuff like that, Randrons will be a great pickup. DD if they don't is going to be your armor item of choice. More like we talked about before if they have a heavy AP comp. But if they didn't have AP top jungle, maybe it was mid and bot. Maybe they had a Ziggs bottom, Hui mid, something like that. You can look to pick up them more later on as a third item, especially DD and Maud together, is quite a good pairing. But for your fourth and fifth item, we gave similar reasoning for every single one, but Visage can be a great pickup later on, as you start to get a lot of healing and shielding, your W, your Eclipse, your ulti passive as a scaling. Visage can be a great pickup for an MR item as a fourth or fifth item, especially if you have a healing or shielding champ on your team as well. So if you have a Soraka, a Sona, Yumi, something like that, Visage will be a huge pickup for you, especially if you need MR in that game. Now, GA is great if you have gone the lethality build. So if you have a Profane Hydra or a Serpent's Fang, something like that, as your third item, GA can be a great pickup. And you can't just go in and one-shot somebody and you try to disengage, but if they blow you up anyway, you got the GA, it can buy a lot of time, especially in games where they have a major threat. So if they've got a Jinx Lulu type comp and just killing the Jinx and dying is the most impactful thing you can do, GA can be a great pickup as you can come back, keep fighting, and maybe even buy a lot more time. And to wrap up the item section, I have a couple of full build examples down below, one for the standard lethality build and one for the bruiser build. And as you can see for the bruiser build, I'd never really go a lethality item, third or fourth. You're going to be going Eclipse, Shojin into DD more, can be Ranger's Visage, can be whatever item you need in the game, but typically you're just going to be going as beefy as possible later on, and a good mixture of AD defensive bruiser items. Now for lethality, again, don't go more than 3 lethality items. Just stick on 3 or 2 a lot of the time, especially in a game that's very close, or you're not super fed. You can just stay on Cyclo Sword and then go defensive bruiser items, but just making sure that you don't pick up items like Black Cleaver, 3rd or 4th, even stay away from Shojin later on most of the time. You do want to be getting either full damage, maxing into that, or starting to get more defensive items. Shojin and Sterak's, I would say, is kind of a weak middle ground, but it is an option definitely if you don't need armor or MR that badly. Next up, we're going to be covering the laning phase, and we're going to start with this VOD here of EDG Solo Kill, because he's the best and best player in the world at the moment in my opinion, and he shows a lot of great concepts in this lane. He's playing up against a Kasante in top 10 Korean Challenger, and the first concept I want to break down is W start on Ambessa. Now, it's a really important tool to know, especially taking the grass page, which you should be doing every time, especially after this guide. And the time where you want to start W over Q, even though most investors start Q, is in very volatile lanes. So if you play up against a Riven, a Jax, a Cassante, where they're going to be fighting you level 1, W start's going to be the way to go, but you can go Q start in very easy lanes where you want to bully your opponent. So you can see Cassante Q'd him, his grasp was stacking, he's not Wing in straight away. He's waiting for that grasp proc, 3 out of 4, jumps in, grasp just comes up before the auto attack, proc shield bash, sudden impact and grasp, and one swing, and then disengage the trade. One extra auto, because Cassante hit him, doesn't want to let that slide. You can see how powerful that trade can be, or just a short W auto trade. So we'll see very shortly again, stacking grasp on the wave, looking to replicate that. Every time he's got W up, looking to force a trade. So waits out the Q3, blocks the auto attack with the W so you can see enhanced damage from his W. Goes in, W auto, you can see how big these trades are. And it's such a short trade, W auto click back, really hard for your opponent to play around that. However, Cassante does get prio in this matchup, not going to be possible for Ambessa, so she's just trying to trim the wave as much as she can, get level 2 at relatively similar time, and keep up these W trades. But Cassante's level 2 right now, of course, don't want to be trading with your W, waiting for level 2, but he's only 1 minion off, so the second he gets that, he'll look for another trade, gets level 2, W in, W auto, Q2 back. You really want to disengage the trade at the end, unless you're going for a kill. You don't want to Q2 and get that last auto, because then you're stuck next to them. It's really important you have that in and out weaving style for trading, and then when they are low enough to all in, that's when you want to go for it. But you need to chip away at them first and get them low, especially in the early game. So you can see now, even though Cassante got prior, because EDG Solakil is trading so well, he's in such a good spot now that it's going to be very difficult for Cassante to crash this wave 3. But he's not overforcing it, you can see Q2, Q1 off to the side, Q2, click backwards, dodging the Q3, just nice little trades chipping away at him, waiting for level 3 before he goes for his all-in. So he gets level 3 very shortly, the second melee minion of this wave, and leading with E. Leading with E to proc the slow, and it's guaranteed from this range, and he's going to wait for Q1 before he can get the outer ring. You can see now, Q1 on the outer ring, dodge off to the side to dodge his Q3, and just dashing past him. You can see the damage here very shortly, with the W, with Sudden Impact, Shield Bash, and Grasp. Just a one-shot onto him, gets up the solo kill up against Cassante. So go back to it without slowing it down. You can see now, because the trades went so well for him, in the early game due to the W start and short grasp trades. Now it's really impossible for Cassante to crash this wave in. If he tries, he's open to getting chased down. So now that he has laid the groundwork, he has short traded onto him to have this HP advantage. Now he can take this extended trade, and you can see trying to dodge his abilities with his dashes and dash past him because he knows he wants to escape back to the tower and picks up a clean solo kill. So now TPing back to lane, if you're curious about what he's building, of course rushing Eclipse as fast as he can, with double longsword and as for his runes, exactly what we talked about in the rune section. So he gets his pink ward down, as he knows he's planning to play aggressive here. Level 4 Ambessa, you can start to really bully your opponent. He doesn't want to be taking an all-in, of course, still going to want to be short trading and poking him down. So you can see here, weaving in and out style. Try not to take too much damage himself, just trying to chip away at his opponent. So here, we'll see leads with Q1, leads with E. If you can hit the E straight away, that's the spell you want to lead with. E's in, Q1's backwards to dodge the W, W's back forward to block some damage, and then Q2 escape. So really nice use of abilities there. And again, Cassante's trying to retrade onto him when his spells are down, but he's not giving him that angle to take an extended trade. So stacking up grass, waiting for his W to be back up. It's pretty rare that you want to do a trade without W, unless you just have a huge gap over your opponent. So playing off that cooldown is going to be more important, even though the Q and E will come up before the W. You want to be using W like this, so you don't really take any damage in response. It's way better to take trades less consistently against your opponent and stay high HP yourself by leveraging your W shield, than to just make it really volatile and get both of you half HP. You want to be using all the tools you have on this champion's kit. So we can see Q's forward, Q2, the common poking thing, and then W's forward again into the E auto, gets them down to 1 HP. So weaving in and out, not taking much damage in response, put him in a position where it's very easy to dive. Even if Zyra wasn't here, I can almost guarantee he'd go for the dive solo. But of course, the jungler's going to help if he's got his lane in such a good position like he has in this game. Now, this next concept from the same lane, or the same game, is also a really important one for Ambessa. She, similar to Camille, is really good at attacking the map even in the early game. However, unlike Camille, her laning phase is a lot stronger and her wave clear is a lot better, so you are going to have more avenues to roam around. So you can see just crashed a wave. He knows Cassante's going to take a long time, especially it's a cannon wave, to push it in. So runs mid straight away. I'll put on his vision, not trying to go around here and get spotted by a ward. But if, imagine Aurora had some vision down, just straight up lane gangster. He knows there's no flash and just drops the ulti straight away. Max range ulti and able to pick up a kill on mid as well. So you can see that it's not just the lane that he's being impactful in. Once he has that lead in his lane, he's looking to be involved. So if you're playing in a game where the mid matchup is really volatile, like this one in here, if you can find prior timings, don't just tunnel too hard on winning the 1v1, especially if you already have a big lead, like he does in this game. Try to spread your influence around the map, maybe attack jungle, mid, or grubs, and be as impactful as possible in the early game. For our next matchup, I'm playing Ambessa up against a Renekton, and because this is one of the most common counter picks, it's really important that you understand how to play this matchup. Now, even though Renekton can get pro if he started in lane, Ambessa wins all the trades early game, so it's really important that you gain an advantage early before Renekton has access to his Fury and Powered Stun, especially level 3 or level 6, then it gets really hard to deal with. So you can see I'm warding the try, trying to find the Renekton level 1, he beat up my jungler, so he is going to be a bit late, and forcing onto him. Now, I do regret starting Q after VOD reviewing how Solo Kill uses his W start so well. There would have been better here because I took a lot of damage myself, but still going to be perfectly fine. So a quick in and out trade, you can see I disengaged it, hitting the waves as much as I can now that my spells are up. Q auto, Q2 back. You can see most of the time after hitting Q2, you want to go backwards, not greeting for that extra auto, because then you overextend yourself. So now, if you can get level 2 first versus Renekton, it's really important that so you can force a level 2 versus 1 trade onto him. So I go W straight away and jump onto him before he gets W. A lot of Renektons will skill W second in this matchup, exactly what he does here, but because I got value, he didn't actually get access to the shield break, because I did get level 2 before him. And now I can see he force with Ignite. I know I'm not going to kill him there if he flashes, but making it really volatile early is really important in this matchup. So now he can't hit the wave, he can't really stack Fury, in fact he has to base here. I put pressure on him, stop his recall, so you can see straight away from the way I played my level 1 to 2, he's in a bad position. Now even if he started in the lane, let's say he didn't have jungle gap, because keep in mind, even though he's late to lane, Nidalee is eating all of our top camps right now, very hard for me to play later on, you'll see very shortly, but even if he did start in lane and get pro, let's imagine he played it perfectly, I would still be able to win trades and play it similar to you saw how Solokill did, trying to go for an angle when the wave is on your side after winning trades is also a key part of this matchup. So now I'm respecting the Nidalee, eating all of our top camps. I'll skip ahead, just jungle gap, nothing exciting to see here. Just respecting, because Ambessa doesn't have flash, it's really important that you do keep the jungle in mind. But I saw Nidalee on that ward, so now I can play the game. Thank you, Nidalee, and try to get this wave in if I can. So Renekton goes in, tries to punish me here. I used my W early there. The reason for that, he doesn't have access to empowered W yet, so I rushed into it. So not really rushed into it, I used it early before he could empowered stun me, and then just looking to disengage the trades here. So Q1, Q back, and here I choose to recall and TP back because I want to be strong enough to block him from crashing the wave, because if Renekton gets level 6 perfectly even, then you're going to be in a really bad spot as his ulti gives him a lot more combat power than yours. So TP back here, try to block the wave, and I'm going to lead with W again before he gets empowered Q. You'll see, go really early, empowered W, sorry, and force the trade. So trying to keep the wave here, forcing a lot of short trades onto him, and this is my time where I'm stronger than him. He's got no TP, it's hard for him to base, so I'm going to be looking to short trade onto him around my W cooldown whenever I can. So ignore the spam ball emote. Ambessa does have the best emotes in the game, so you can look to do that if you want to taunt your opponent. But mainly I'm just looking to punish him if he walks up. I think he was respecting Skarner there, waiting for his Nidalee. I'm not going to be moving to this. My lane's in too good of a position and my Skarner is level 2, so I have no interest in fighting with him. So slowly pushing the wave, you can see I'm not trying to hard push it, just really milking out the last hits here. Trying to build the biggest wave I can, so Renekton can't walk up and stack Fury against it without me being able to punish him. So here, you can see my body language. If you touch this cannon minion, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. That's exactly what we do here. I should have led with E. Again, still learning the champion at this point of the VOD a couple weeks back or a week ago. So there I led with Q. Should lead with E so that you can increase your chances of hitting the outer ring of Q. So leading with E here would have been better, but you can see still a great trade because I have the level advantage. And I was respecting Nidalee a bit there. That's why I didn't play too crazy. Had no idea where she was. And now slow pushing this big wave, hard push, and base. I was going to base initially, but I saw that he stayed, so I'm going to be looking to poke him under tower instead. So like we talked about, really good at poking under tower on this champion. Waiting for my W though, don't want to take a tower shot for no reason. But once it's up, we are definitely going to be poking. So jump backwards there. You can see Q2 back. Looking to greed and auto as well, W and E away. I didn't want to use W there. I wanted to hold it just in case I went for one more trade, took a tower shot. But either way, as long as you're not taking free tower shots, the trades are going to be great. So I was waiting to see if he based there, stop it with Q2, putting a lot of pressure onto him. You have to play really aggressive in the early points of this lane. It's kind of a best defense is a good offense kind of mentality. Because again, if he gets to level 6 and he's not behind, you're going to have a really tricky time. So I'd push this wave, base straight back to lane. You can see Eclipse, not delaying for tabbies or anything like that, trying to get it as fast as I can. And now we are going to be forcing onto him. So I've got the level lead, so I'm going to be trading. You can see Q1 in, Q2 hit him, hop backwards. Nice in and out trades. Wait for my Q to come back up. I'll probably look to go on him if he touches this cannon. Very, very likely. If you touch the cannon, I'm going to trade. Lead with Q1 because I could hit the outer ring there. E into Q2. And now he dashes onto me, just disengaging. I don't win an extended all-in versus Conqueror Champ, so you can see a lot of my dashes were disengaged trades, but we were able to burn his ulti. So now he's lost access to that combat power, so we are going to be looking to trade onto him if he walks back up. I'm pretty sure he was going to go get fruit there, but wasn't sure if it was up or not, and now I can look to punish him. Every time you walk up for CS, I'm going to be looking to trade onto him, ignore the emote, and you can see very shortly. W. I don't W right now. You don't want to be W when they do have the Fury. So a lot of the time I was doing early Ws was because his Fury was too low to get it in a hurry. But now I know he could get in one auto attack or a Q. So I didn't lead with W here. I led with E, hold on to W. And this is the annoying part of the matchup. Even if they don't break your shield with W, let's say you hold it, they can disengage the trade with E, which makes it really tricky. But as long as you can get an early game lead, it's not going to be too bad. And now we can see his E's on cooldown, so I'm just going to send an ulti straight at him, shift cast ulti to guarantee that it's going to hit, or increase your chances that it's going to hit. So you can see, before I go for the all-in, I took a trade with him, baited out a Z, waited for my abilities to be back up, and then sent the ulti onto him while his dash is on cooldown. So I'm able to force his trade, get the dive down, and we're able to win a very tricky matchup. Now, for our next example, I'm playing Ambessa up against a Cassante, and one concept I really want to showcase is poking under tower. She's one of the best melee champs in the game at poking your opponent under tower without taking much damage in response, but it's important that you know the correct way to do so. Now, the way the tower works, you can see it's shooting out the auto attacks onto the tower, onto the minion, sorry, but the second it shoots, that's when you want to be poking. The second the shot leaves the tower, that's when you want to poke because the shot has to finish its traveling, hit the minion, recharge before it locks onto you, and if you utilize your dashes properly, you can disengage out of the tower range. Now, even if the shot does hit you, you can always block it with a W. It's kind of your emergency escape for if the tower shot does hit you, but it's important that you know how to do both. Use the W to block the shot, and also if you don't have your W up, looking to juggle the tower aggro, the timing of it's really key here. Just as the shot leaves the tower onto a minion, that's when you want to trade and then disengage, get out of the tower range before it switches onto you. So showcase here, we can see I'm going to take a trade very shortly, just as the shot hits the minion, Q him, and even though it hit me, I got the W shield down, so now that my W is down, I have to be a lot more careful, so Q2, just as the shot leaves the tower, you can see here, just as the minion gets shot, I'll do my Q2 just now, so it has to take time before it shoots me, or if I did it on the wrong timing, it could just automatically lock on and fire a shot onto me, depending on how bad I timed it. Now again, don't have my W up, so I'm going to have to do a juggle the tower aggro quite well. So just as it shoots, you can see Q away, doesn't have time to shoot onto me. Just now, you can see waiting, you can see the tower shot just left the tower, it's barely left its eye, and I'm already looking for a trade onto him, auto attack Q down. So that even though the tower did lock onto me, the tower is still on cooldown, so it cannot shoot me there. And again, we'll see one more time. Just as it shoots, I'm going to look to W, auto E, and just take one shot there. So it's a really important skill to master if you can juggle that tower aggro. You can always block it with W if you make the mistake or do it on purpose, but knowing to attack your opponent just as the shot leaves the tower is a skill that's really important to practice on this champion. And for our final point I want to cover in the laning section, I have an example here from a student of mine who's still learning Ambessa, and the point I want to showcase is when you want to have a short trading mentality on this champion. It's really important, especially versus Lethal Tempo or Conqueror long trading champs, to know when you want to do a short trade. So here, even though he's really strong, he's 2-0, he's dominated the lane so far, that doesn't mean you can just take an extended all-in up against champions that excel in that type of playstyle. So you'll see very shortly Wine leads with W into the trade. You can see beating him down a huge amount of damage straight away. So if you disengage the trade right now, or even a bit earlier to get out of range, waited patiently and then came back in, when all of his spells are back up, out, this is a guaranteed lane win up against a 0-2 Yone, probably going to make him go 0-10 this game. However, he doesn't have the short trading mentality drilled into him quite yet, so you can see he walks into the bush and looks to take an extended trade. You'll see very shortly, he's carting him around trying to keep the trade going when he could have just walked under tower and spaced it out. So now Yone, even though 0-2, wins the extended trade up against him. And yeah, he could have played a better, Yone could have played a better as well, but there's no way a 0-2 Yone should be able to get this engage onto him. If he had that mentality that he only wants to take short trades, he would have prevented this mistake from happening. Next up, we have abilities, tips, and tricks. Now, as for your maxing, we're going to be maxing Q into E into W, and putting a point in R whenever you can. The reason we max E over W for your second spell, even though W is a pretty broken ability, is because extra points of W does not increase the shield at all. It just reduces cooldown and gives you more damage, and it's very rare that you'll ever get 2 Ws off in a fight, even when it's maxed, but you can get 2 E's off in a lot of skirmishes, and the wave clear on E is insane as well. Now, after using an ability, your next auto attack is going to have extra range and extra damage, so it's really important to use this in lane quite well. You can space people in lane, especially when they go for minions or try to hit you. Very similar to Cassante after hitting a Q, abusing that extra range is very important on this champion. You can also use this extra damage on a tower, so make sure when you're whacking the tower down, making sure you use your abilities, clear the wave at the same time of your spells as you're stacking up your passive and using it on the tower to maximize your damage to that tower. Now you can actually buffer this enhanced auto attack through CC, so even if you can time it perfectly, versus like a Renekton W, you can get the auto off, versus even a Jax E, if you time it perfectly, you can get your E or auto attack timing very timed perfectly, very similar to Camille Q2 getting it through the E. You can actually buffer every single auto attack that has your passive on it through any type of CC, which is of course very important on this champ, even in a late game team fight where you've got the Cyclo Sword. If you can get that proc during your CC, really, really impactful. Now you can't use your dash while grounded, so be very mindful of champions like Poppy W getting grounded and Cassio W. A little tip against Poppy is when you feel like she's gonna W, just stand still, just dump your abilities onto her and don't hop around and make it so she wastes her W before you start dashing. But versus Cassio, just make sure you're hopping in an unpredictable way so you don't get stuck in her poo. Now, dashing in relative to sudden impact, in relation to sudden impact, is a good trick to use is Q1ing the wave, and then dashing past it, hitting your Q2 on the opponent, try to hit them isolated for the extra damage or making sure you hit them first, and the sudden impact will apply on that Q2, which is a huge reason why it's so broken on this champion. You can just use your Q1 hop on the wave if you want to, and then hit them with a Q2 if you feel like you're not in range to auto. That's going to give you the Q2 damage and sudden impact as well. Now, with the passive jump, there is a short range and a max range. So if you want to be min-maxing your combo in terms of speed, so if somebody jumps onto you and you need to min-max all your abilities, you can just dash really close to your character by clicking close by, so that you land faster, you can auto and get your next spell down faster, not stuck in that max range dash animation. Moving on to your Q. Now, the most important part about Ambessa's Q1 is the inner damage is pretty trash, very similar to a Darius, so make sure you're trying to hit the outer ring if you can. So somebody jumps onto your face, like a Jax Q, don't just Q them straight away, lead with E and hop into a distance while they're slowed from the E, that you can hit the outer ring of your Q1. Now, Q2, I'd say, is her main poking tool, and the first target that you hit is going to receive bonus damage, so make sure you don't throw that into the wave if you can avoid it. So if you're jumping into your opponent and you're favored for the trade, you know they're going to run away back to tower, hold on to your Q2 until the very end of the trade, so that you can guarantee the Q2 bonus damage if they are running away from the wave. Now, you can weave auto attacks in between your Q, so Q into AA, into Q2 into AA. Make sure you weave in an auto between your spells pretty much every time. We'll touch on it during combos when you shouldn't be doing that, but most of the time you do want to be weaving in autos, but right after your dash, after using an ability. Now you can actually Q into flash. You won't be taking flash most of the time, but you can Q1 flash, Q2 flash. You can do that with every ability, to be honest, except for ulti, so something to keep in mind. Now you can cancel the Q animation with E. So again, if you want to burst somebody down really quickly, especially in a skirmish before they react or while they're CC'd, you can QE. So not Q, hop, auto attack E. You can QE, cancel that animation, and get a big burst of damage down quickly, which can be really useful with the lethality build if you're trying to burst somebody from low HP. You can actually do this animation cancel with every ability, so QE, QW, QR, but QE is the most useful that you'll be doing in terms of quickly bursting your opponent. Moving on to your W. Now, your W damage will be increased if you can block damage from your opponent during the channel. So if you're blocking a Riven Q3, Aatrox Q, Mod Q, whatever it may be, it's really important if you can react to their burst, not only to get high value from the shield, but gain extra damage as well. And like we talked about in the laning section, this is a very good ability for poking under tower, but try not to lead with it. Don't just W them under tower unless you're bursting them, something like that. Try to poke them. Try to juggle the tower aggro well, but use W to block a tower shot on the way out if you need to. Now, AA into W into AA. So every ability from Ambessa feels very smooth to weave autos in between, so make sure you're practicing that. You can W flash as well, and like we talked about in the Q section, you don't need to W hop AA, Q hop AA every single time. If you want to burst your opponent really quickly, let's imagine your Q is down, something like that, you can just WE, or if it's up, WQ, W ulti. You can use your abilities very quickly next to each other. You don't always need a tunnel on the hop auto attack, but they will maximize your damage, so do that most of the time. Moving on to your E. Now, this is a relatively straightforward ability. Some advice on it is try to use it before your Q2, as especially now people are figuring out what Ambessa does. They are dodging Q2 more often, so if they're slowed from your E, it's a lot easier to guarantee your Q2 onto them. And again, auto attack into E into auto attack, it feels very smooth on this champion. You can cancel any ability, so EQ, EW, E ulti, whatever it may be. And E flash, I would say if you are taking flash, is the most useful, as you will guarantee the slow onto them, and it feels a lot harder to react to than your other abilities. Moving on to your ulti. Now, out of all of Ambessa's abilities, the number one tip by far is the fact that you can buffer your ulti through crowd control. It doesn't matter what the CC is, if you're going to get hit by a Jaxi, Malphite ulti, even if you're about to fall asleep after getting hit by a Zoe E, you can buffer your ulti through it and you won't even get CC'd at the end of the animation. Now, the next tip on this is also the second most important, is the distance from your ulti to your opponent when you hit them is perfect range for your Q1, and they are going to still be CC'd during the ulti animation, so you can get your Q off and they're not going to be able to flash it at all. The only time where you would R into dash is if you're about to get hit by, let's say, a Huayfei, a Zoe E, something like that on the enemy team. If you didn't ult that target, you will need to use the R dash to dodge that ability, but other than that, just make sure you R into Q to min-max your damage. Your ulti will also reveal stealth, so if you can hit a champion like a Shaco while he's invisible, you are going to reveal that for your team, so that can be important versus Kali as well, champs like that. And the tip for team fighting on the ulti, we'll talk more about that later. Try to R from Fog of War. The ulti, especially now, I'd say is relatively easy to dodge if you're thinking about it, especially a long range one. So try to R from Fog of War or try to chain CC it with your teammates. We'll talk about it a little bit in drafting, but I feel like combos like Nautilus and Ambessa are going to be really important. So if you do play with champs like that, you can just wait for the point click Nautilus ulti, or even if it's not point click, maybe a Leona ulti, a Lissandra combo, something like that, and chain your ulti with that. It can increase your success significantly. And one extra little bonus tip for Ambessa's art is making sure you give yourself an option in your settings to normal cast this ability so that you can see the range and aim it as high chance that it'll hit as possible. I myself use Shift and R, I find that the best, but you can use a mouse button or any other key that you like. It's just important that you have access to it because hitting a max range R with Smart Cast can be really tricky, but having the option to Smart Cast if you want or normal cast in a hurry can be really important. Moving on to combos. Now, just to clarify, so I don't have to say the word dash 500 times, every time I say auto, that's going to mean auto attack and utilizing your dash passive as well. If I don't say auto, that means using two abilities together. Now, for your main trading combo, before you have your ulti in lane, you're going to be leading with Q1 into auto, E auto, Q2 auto, and finishing with W auto. Now, because you want to be disengaging after short trading a lot, unless you're going for an all-in and killing them, making sure you're cutting backwards or finishing the trade with W, but you can actually do W anytime during this combo to get value out of the shield. So if you Q1 and they instantly jump onto you with, let's say, a Jax QE, something like that, you can use your W in replace of E, in replacement for E, so that you can get high value from that shield. But most of the time, if you're trading onto your opponent and they don't have much room to fight you back, the combo will look like this, finishing off with W. Now, the standard combo for an all-in with ulti is leading with ulti from max range or close range, doesn't really matter, and to Q1, so the R Q1 together, making sure you're not dashing into auto attacking between R and Q1, so R Q1 into auto into E, auto W, auto Q2, auto. Now, again, you can use your W anytime during this combo to get value from the shield, but the finishing with Q2 can be effective because it's your longest range ability. Now, as for your disengage combo, if they're jumping onto you and they have CC, and you do have your ulti up, So a Camille, let's say it's about to hit you, you can lead with ulti, just rip her with an ulti straight away, R into Q1 to give her, into auto E, auto W, auto Q2, and again using W whenever you need to block the damage, but buffering your R through the CC from a Riven combo, Camille, anything like that, can be a lot more effective than just tanking it with W and holding your W for a later point on that trade. Moving on to her quick combo. Now this one's really important, especially if your opponent's already low HP, so if they get CC'd by something else and your chain CCing it, or if you're got enough damage to one-shot them with the lethality build, leading with R into Q1, so the RQ1 we talked about, into E as well, so no autos in between, RQ1, E, all very smoothly, cancelling the Q animation with your E to min-max your damage very quickly while they're CC'd, then you can auto into Q2, into auto into W, you can use W first if you need to block some damage after the CC drops off, but R, Q1, E is the main point for quick comboing, making sure you don't tunnel every time on R, hop, Q, hop, E, hop. Sometimes you do just want to burst them very quickly with R, Q1, E, and then doing the rest of your combo. Next up, we're going to be covering the matchups, and like I talked about at the start of this video, Ambessa is one of the best blind pick melee champs in the game at the moment, and an Ambessa with really high mastery isn't really that scared of many matchups, so I try to make this more of a general tier list that can apply to all elo brackets, but if you have high enough mastery, even matchups like Aurelia, matchups like Renekton, won't be that bad. Alright, maybe if you've a Sorel King it could be a bit tricky, but all of these matchups are playable in some way. Now, Warwick being the hardest, because the weakness of Ambessa that you need to keep in mind is extended trades. So champions like Yone with Bork and Lethal Tempo, really hard to deal with in the mid game, but the reason he's so low is the matchup itself isn't that hard. So the lane is okay, but champions that can just force onto you and beat you down is going to be very difficult, and Warwick can do that from level 1 pretty much, so it's going to be a really hard matchup for you to play against. Taking Ignite can help, and if you play against a Warwick that doesn't quite know his limits, maybe you can get away with it. And if you do get to Eclipse and you're not behind, there's a lot of room to shut him down. But Warwick is definitely, of course, the strongest melee laner in the game at the moment, and a really good matchup into Ambessa. So my advice is this would be a matchup where you get healing cut on your first recall, play very passive early game, start W like we talked about in the laning section, try to stay high HP. If you can get an 800 gold recall, especially if you back in TP and he misses his base timer, then you can look to beat him up, but the early game is going to be very brutal, and especially when he's got Bork as well, if you don't have a lead, you do have to be very careful of getting run down in the side lane. Now, Irelia will get prio against you. You can win early trades, but once she has Vamp Scepter, level 6, if the wave's on her side, she can just run you down, so be very careful. A big advice I could give for this matchup is try to anticipate where she's going to E and ulti. You can't really react to her E2 with a dash or her ulti, so try to predict where she's going to put it and dodge accordingly. Now, for Tryndamere, this matchup's probably the most boring, as it's a neutralizer. Ambessa is really good at short trading, beating your opponent down, and then re-engaging, but Tryndamere's just going to heal to fall off the wave. So the best time for you to play this matchup will be in the early game. Try to beat him down, try to get some good trades, and look for a kill early, because once he has Rev Hydra, good luck playing the game up against him. It's not going to be horrible. He can't guarantee advantage against you, but he can just neutralize you, and Ambessa does want to get a hit early if you can, which is why I'd classify this as a hard matchup. Now, Renekton, the biggest reason he's here, of course, is W will break your shield. So be very mindful of that. Try to play around it. If he has good Fury, be careful, don't lead with shield. A good Renekton will just hold on to it, or they will use W straight away and then dash away before the stun expires, so try to fight him while he doesn't have Fury. So 1 to 5, he can get prio, but you'll win trades, so try to get an advantage early game if you can. If you can chunk him down with short trade, then they may be ultimate when he's low HP. There's a lot of room to play, so try to play aggressive early game in terms of trading. Don't try to get prio if the Renekton's good, but try to win your trades and try to punish him early, and be very mindful when he has high Fury. You probably want to be more respectful and try to space him and kite him with abilities. Be willing to give CS if you have to. Don't walk up and auto attack a minion. Give him a W. Try to farm with your abilities and poke him down, especially if the Renekton is competent. Moving on to the opponent favored matchups. Now, some of these matchups are harder at different sections of the lane. So champs like Riven and Pantheon can be really hard, especially level 1. They can beat you down. So I definitely recommend starting W, trying to buffer your auto attack through their CC, and get the grass proc and maybe even the shield bash as well. Can be really important. Just be really mindful that if you can get to Eclipse unscathed against the majority of champions in this list, you're going to do just fine, and there will be timings where you can win the matchup. So try to buffer your auto through CC, try to react to Pantheon W with your W, Riven Q3 of your W, things of that nature. Versus the really hard range matchups like Aurora or Kennen, try to utilize the bush as well Doran's shield, of course, just come out for CS and try to let them push you in early. And they're going to be, and try to stay high HP. And then when the wave bounces back and you get level 4, if you have the minion and XP advantage, then you can look to force trades onto them. But a bad Aurora, a bad Cannon, they might make spacing mistakes where you can punish them, so keep that in mind, but bush control is going to be a huge part of these matchups. Now, for matchups like Yone, where the early lane, you can look to take trades and bully him a little bit. Once he has Bork and lethal tempo, it gets very, very brutal, so be very mindful with the mid game, not overextending inside lane, as they can just kill you there. And for lane, just try to, I'd say my biggest advice for a lot of these matchups is try to anticipate the abilities that you want to dodge instead of relying on reacting to them. If Yone just rips a ulti or a Q3 onto you, good luck trying to Q and then dodge it. The animation's too fast. Same with a cannon Q, a rumbly. It's very hard to react to that ability and dodge it. You need to anticipate it when the rumble walks at you, when you're walking towards a minion and he's going to E you. Try to already start your Q animation and your dash before he shoots his E. Same with the Yone Q3. Anticipate the abilities they're going to use that you want to be dodging and dodge ahead of time. A lot more replicable, I would say, than just mechanics maxing like you're the next Zeus trying to dodge everything. Just try to anticipate what they're going to do and pre-dodge in advance. Now for the top two, Kennen, Poppy, and Cassante, I'd say Cassante is not that bad unless the Cassante has extremely high mastery. But the 1 to 3 is going to be your best bet, so try to win the lane early game, try to take short trades, again anticipating his Q, dodging it, anticipating his W, pre-dodging it can be really important. It's a very skillful matchup, but I would give the edge to Cassante as he is a little bit broken at the moment, and at level 6 he can just run you down, so you do have to be very mindful of that. Now for Poppy, of course the most annoying part, he can constantly, or she can constantly short trade onto you and poke you down. Her poking tools are a lot shorter cooldown than your W, so you do have to be mindful of that. It's a little bit easier after the nerf. The only reason I have her here, we're in a 1v1 custom game. I wouldn't mind the matchup too much. It's really easy for them to kill you in a gank with Poppy W, as if you get grounded, not only does your dash get interrupted, you can't dash during that grounded at that timer, so it's really easy for them to gank you. She can poke you down, so if you're half HP and she can cancel your dashes, really hard to survive in that matchup. So my advice is when you're fighting her, if you feel like she's going to W, again, a lot of this champion is anticipation, trying to anticipate when she'll W, and just use your abilities without dashing. Just Q auto, don't dash away. It's going to be really hard to fight your instincts, especially if you've played this champion a bunch before, Ambessa, so try to fight your instincts and stand still. Use your abilities and wait out that W so that you don't take the extra damage and get grounded. Now, as for the skill matchups, a lot of these matchups, spacing is very important. It's important in every matchup, but a lot of these ones especially, champs like Jax, champs like Camille, if they can force onto you with Camille passive, or Jax can force onto you, start auto-attacking you and put his E up, it can be tricky in Darius as well. You need to be spacing them with your abilities and of course your extra auto range, and making it really hard for them to do what they want to do. Again, anticipating is going to be important. Anticipate that Kled Q, that Cassio Q, try to pre-dodge it will be really important in this matchup. Also buffering your ulti through CC. So if you can ulti buffer the Cassio ulti, or the Jaxi, or the Camille, that can be very vital for these matchups as well. Now, as for the Ambessa favored matchups, some of these can be quite tricky early game. Matchups like Volibear can beat you down if you're not careful, but once you get level 9 and Eclipse, you will completely destroy them if you're not behind. And even before that, around level 4, level 5, you can start to trade on them, and they can't really force anything onto you. Volibear can't really reach you with Q. You can just kite him away. Even if he does a few points in Q, if you're spacing correctly, it's really hard for him to reach you. And because you take Ignite, his healing is not that good. As long as you don't give him W2 and let him take the trade for too long, you're going to be fine. A lot of these matchups, they will win in a long trade, but you'll dominate short trades, and it's really hard for them to get long trades onto you. So a champion like Yone or Irelia, they can force long trades onto you. That's the big difference between them and a champion like Fiora. It's really hard for Fiora to lock you down and force that long trade, because you can just kite her and disengage. Wukong kind of can in a way, but I'd say his champion's just too old. Your kit's too strong. If he jumps onto you and you block all of his damage with W and beat him down, and he gets low, he doesn't really have any sustain, so this matchup can be quite good for you. But even the champions in here that would beat you in a long trade, like a Volibear or a Set, they can't even get onto, which is why I'd say it's favored for you, as long as you are playing your champion to a good level. Really hard for them to force onto. Just be really careful into champs like Set, into champs like Volibear, level 1 and 2, because level 4, when the wave is bouncing back, is when you can start to beat them up. Now, a lot of these champions, I'd say in the easy category as well, you can poke under tower, around level 5, level 7, if you're doing well in your lane. So poking under tower, Ambessa is one of the best bruisers at doing so, so definitely a skill you want to practice. Try to time it so just as the tower shoots, that you're hitting them and dashing away. You can always W if you need to, and when they get low enough, you can go for the dive. A lot of these matchups you can get fed in that way. Because although Ambessa can lift the wave bounce back, poke them down, trim the wave, freeze and go for an all-in, especially ripping with ulti, poking under tower and killing your opponent with a dive is going to be a lot more of a bigger advantage for you. So if you can do that up against a champ like a Gwen, a champ like a Gangplank, your lead is going to be a lot bigger than if you bounce the wave back. So don't be afraid to practice poking your opponent under tower and gaining a huge advantage, especially in the matchups that are favored for you. Next up, we're going to be covering the mid game. Now, the mid game on Ambessa is very similar to a lot of other bruisers, where you want to be pushing in the wave on the opposite side of the next objective. So in this game here, Dragon's up next, so I'm pushing in top, looking to create pressure, but not over split push. You don't want to be trying to break the tier 2 or eat all the camps on the map, like you would on a champ like Garen or on Gwen. You just want to be keeping somebody stuck under tower and look for a proactive 5v4 team fight, either around mid by flanking with your ulti, or rocking up to Dragon or Baron and looking for the fight there. However, in this case, I did not want to fight the Dragon. We just had a fight before it, and now Galio doesn't have ulti. He was the most useful player on the team other than me. I did not want to fight without that spell, so I'm just pushing in Riven under tower and looking for a play around mid. So looking to flank here, and they are respecting me mid, couldn't get an angle, so straight back to top. You can see I've got a sweeper here, looking to sweep my way through, so they can't see me. Push in the wave, make Riven answer, look for the play mid. If there's no play, back to side, push in the wave. However, here, you can see there was no angle again, push in top. You can see back and forwards, constantly looking for a play every single wave. Not looking to waste time, trying to dive Riven or break the tower, pushing her under tower to make her unable to respond to me, and then look for a play. And that's exactly what we get here. It took 3 tries, but we did eventually get it. Most times it'll only take 1 or 2 tries in solo queue, sometimes a bit more, as long as you're patient, and we're able to get the angle here. So get the kill onto this Zoe, and then I can just go straight back to side, or I can continue pushing mid, depends on the game. Here I'm going to go straight back to side, push it in, and look to do the same thing all over again. Now, I want to expand a bit more on that point we just touched on about not wasting too much time split pushing, because in Bissa, like other bruisers, you're not trying to scale for that third, fourth item, you take a long time to break towers, that's not the main way to win. However, the difference between Ambessa and a lot of other champions is your ability to poke under tower. So if there's not a better option for you to take, and you can make meaningful progress against your opponent, then you can look to do that. So here, I punish the Mord going for a ward, and now he's a low HP. I know I can play for a dive, I can poke him down even more, I can look for the dive, and there's no better option for me right now. There's a little bit of a play happening top side, but I have no good ward to TP to. I think I'll look very shortly if it's a good TP or not. You can see move my camera, don't think it's good, the wards are so far away, it's a bad TP, so there's no play that I could get involved in here. If I look to flank mid, my Gregis just died and chucked up the FF vote, we love our junglers, so there's no really good play here for me to make, so it's better for me to make progress inside, and I can do that just now. You can see poking him under tower, in and out, disengaging, just patiently waiting out his ulti here, no need to rush into it. Looking to trim the tower as well. He pops up his W, waits for that to drop off, and then sending my full combo hit, able to pick up the kill. So you can make progress inside on Ambessa a lot more than other bruisers. However, that should not be your priority. If there was an option for me to TP, if I had better wards, if there was a play mid, if they were trying to siege mid, I would have done that as my priority. But if there's no better play for you to make on the game, then you can look to punish your opponent 1v1 and continue that lane poking domination into the mid game. And for our final point, and this will segue quite nicely into the team fighting section, is using the fact that you can get side lane prio in a lot of games to make somebody respond and look for a creative angle to attack the opponent around mid or a neutral objective. So here, I push in bottom, trying to make somebody react. They reacted a lot later than I expected. You can see there's volley bin now. So I'm looking to create that 5v4 play. So rotate down here, looking for an angle, and this is also a trick you can do. I couldn't reach Kaylin with my ulti, so I just use her support Galio as a little ward jump here, and I was able to reach her from really deep over the wall. So you can see the angles if you're creative enough. I swept my way in, hiding in this bush here, hiding in the Raptor's pit, ulti onto his teammate so that I can reach him. Caitlyn Yua's here, the Yone spotted me, but she's sitting leaning far away from me. You can jump to their teammates as well. It's not going to work every time, but here we have the overwhelming power advantage. We're so much stronger than them, and my teammates were ready. So as long as you're looking for these angles, you're not trying to split push the bot tier 1, bot tier 2, wasting too much time there, you can find them a lot of the time. Next up, we're going to be covering team fighting. And the most important thing by far for team fighting well on this champion is your positioning before the fight begins. It's really important that you're constantly looking for a creative flank angle where they can't see you. So as soon as your lane is done, make sure you're grabbing a sweeper, grabbing pinks. You don't have to buy pinks during lane if you don't want to, but in the mid game you definitely need sweeper pinks and looking for a really creative flank angle to reach the backline with your ulti. So you can see here, that's exactly what I do. Really deep flank, and I can start the fight by sniping Corki straight away with my ulti. Now, I didn't know if he had W or flash or anything like that, so I just burst him to half HP, one shot his jungler, disengage the fight, weaving in and out style. And my Victor was a bit late. He was shopping probably for something really important, like a blasting one. I should have waited. But you can see the idea. A really creative flank where they can't see you makes it really hard for their team to play. So even here with my AD carry mid were really late, we're still able to win the fight. And the reason it's way more important to be flanking, even though you can just technically no-scope them from the front and it jumps to the back line, it's a lot easier for them to dodge it if they see you, of course, or flash it or dash it. So that's the bonus. But also, while flanking, even if they see you from that flank position, it puts a lot of pressure on the backline, makes it really hard to play. So even if you don't end up ulting in and starting off the fight, the threat of you doing that makes it really hard for them to play the fight regardless. And to showcase one more example of it, in a game where we don't have any control at all, the enemy got here early, they got full vision, and I'm not even that strong in this game. But you can see my idea is the same. I'm looking for a creative flank angle, looking to get behind them, and this fight starts out disastrously, even though it's a late game outer fight, my LeBlanc got insta-killed, but you can see, I'm sticking to my game plan. Deep flank, remaining unseen, waiting for the time to strike, and able to start off the fight here by going onto the way. So dash in straight away, get as much damage down as I can, disengage straight away, weaving in now the fight, able to blow up the way before the fight even begins, and win this late game out of 4v5. Moving on to Ambessa's identity and the mindset you should have when playing this champion. Now, the biggest spike by far on Ambessa is level 9 with Eclipse. That's when you're the strongest champion in the game for the most part, but you're also good at 2 items, so Eclipse into Cyclo Sword. 1 to 2 items is when you really want to be doing your best work and fighting as much as you can. This is not a champion like Gwen, where you're trying to min-max get tier 2 towers, play for level 16 3 items if you can. 1 to 2 items is when you're the best. Now, she doesn't scale as bad as other bruises later on. She scales better than champs like Renekton or Aatrox. However, the 1 to 2 item spike is when you're the strongest relative to every other champ in the game. Even though at 4 items you're fine, you're not that weak, you can't compare it to a 4 item Def Cap Void Staff Control Mage, level 16 Karthus, or a 80 carry with 4 items. So 1 to 2 items while everyone else is weak, or the high scaling mid and AD carry or even jungle champs are weak, that's when you want to be doing your best work, contesting every dragon you can, fighting Herald, forcing early barons. You do not want to be min-maxing side lane and trying to get 10 CS per minute, anything like that on this champion. Of course, if you have 10 CS per minute and you are at all the fights, that's the sweet spot, but your goal should not be min-maxing farm and camps like you would on champs like Fiora or Gwen, where you come online later on in the game. Now, in terms of your team fight identity, you are a threat. You're going to be threatening the backline. You are a diver. You almost never want to front to back. But like any champ, if you have a 10 kill Jinx or Lulu carrying the game, just peel for them. But most of the time, you're going to be diving and threatening the backline, looking for a creative flank angle. So picking up sweeper the second you have your eclipse, or the second your lane ends, and looking to find angles, creative angles on the backline can be the way to go. Because your ulti hits the back target, you can technically fight from the front, but having that threatening flank position is not only better to threaten the backline, but also if they see you there and they see you on the front, you're playing a front to back, they're not really that scared of you, but that pressure of you on the back, threatening their backline can make it really hard for them to play, so definitely look to flank in the majority of your games. Now, because Ambessa is one of the best melee blind picks in the entire game for top lane, I definitely recommend it if you do want to play her. Having her as a main champ or maybe one of your top 2, she's not really a champion that you just save as a counter pick, like, oh, I'm going to pick Ambessa into Cho'Gath or something like that. You want to be having her as a staple blind pick because she's just so powerful at it. Where a champion like Gwen or Darius, even though you can blind pick them, if you pick them in the right scenario or a Malphite, you're going to get a 10 out of 10 value. If you see 5 melee champs, a lot of heavy tanks, Gwen or Darius is going to be the most broken champ ever. Or if you see a heavy AD, a mobile comp, Malphite's going to be broken, but Ambessa is going to be very valuable pretty much every game you play her. Of course, some games will be better than others, but she's a great champ to have high mastery on so that you know all the matchups, all the counter picks, because you can beat a Renekton, you can beat an Irelia if you're playing this champ very well, where if you play a champ like Darius and you verse a really good range top player, it can be quite tricky to beat them down, not saying it's not doable, but Ambessa will give you more consistent value, so a great champ to have as one of your mains. Now, we talked about the item spiking before, but I do want to put more emphasis on the Eclipse item spike, as this is when you really want to start changing how you play. So if you're 400, 300 gold off Eclipse in your lane, maybe you don't take your all in right now. Hold on to your ulti, hold on to your ignite, get that Eclipse base TP back, and then really start to push the pace of the game. You're either killing your opponent, you're poking them under tower, because not only can you take one tower shot with Eclipse shield, a second tower shot with W, and go get away relatively unscathed, your burst is going to be a lot higher. So once you have Eclipse, you really want to be pushing how hard you play. Now that doesn't mean I've got Eclipse, I can 1v1 any champion in the game, full HP versus full HP. Be very careful of Bork, Conqueror, lethal tempo, the extended all-in items or rune champs, so like a Yone, lethal tempo Bork, be very careful. Or maybe a Conqueror, Darius, something like that. You want to be taking a short trade against certain champions, bursting them down, and then going back in with ulti while they're poked down, then you can kill them. But a lot of champs that aren't good at long trading, so any tank, any grasp, or fleet champ, you're pretty much going to be able to beat them full HP versus full HP, as long as you're not behind. So once you have Eclipse, you want to be either dominating your lane, or looking to move around the map and make proactive plays. And for our final point, you cannot play this champ if you're a KDA player. You can be a KDA player on champs like Gwen and champs like Yone, 10 CS per minute, Zero Deaths, min-maxing and carry that way, but you cannot do that on Ambessa. You need to get stuck in. You can't be afraid to send your ulti and be very impactful in a fight, even though it might risk you dying. You gotta go in and fight. A champ like Camille, I'd say, weaving in and out and not dying is very important, because you scale very well later on to the game as well. You don't want to die and not be min-maxing your XP and gold. But a champ like Ambessa, don't be afraid to get stuck in, do 3,000, 4,000 damage in the fight, and then die. Of course, don't just die for free, but if you can be very impactful and you go down swinging, definitely worth it. Don't be afraid to send your ulti onto the backline and get things started. If you do have engage on your team, your job is 10 times easier, don't get me wrong. Let the Zac or the Sejuani or whoever go in first and do all them, and then you can come in and clean up and steal all the credit. But if you are the solo engage on your team, so if you have some trash champs on your team that can't engage, especially if you have champs like Katarina or Yone who are also kind of waiting for their moment, don't be afraid to get stuck in, especially if you have a good angle on their backline. Next up, we're going to be going through a full game review of a recent solo queue game of mine that I played this week, and I'm going to be talking you through exactly what I was thinking throughout this entire game. So yet again, our matchup Ambessa against Renekton, really common counterpick. This one plays it a bit better than the one in our laning phase section. He did actually get pro, but my game plan is exactly the same. Even though you get pro, I want to be forcing trades onto you and making it really hard for you to crash the wave, so that by the time you do get stronger than me, level 3 with Fury or level 6 especially, I'm in a good position. So stacking my grasp on the wave, waiting for my grasp to come up, and then forcing this trade Q, dodge his Q there, anticipating that it's going to Q, and then force a trade here on my side. Now normally, I would wait for my next Q to come up, but because he walked onto my side of the wave to Q me, I'm okay to trade an auto for his Q, and get myself a grasp proc. However, he is Renekton. It's going to be really hard to get Prio up against him, so I'm trying to trim the wave as much as I can. You can see how hard he's respecting my Q, trying to kite it out, bait it out. So I'm just holding on to it. He has to come in for minions eventually. If he wants to get level 2 first, I have no reason to rush into my Q. But now he gets level 2. I have to disengage this trade while he has the level advantage, so I hop backwards here, trying to disengage it before he W's me. If he W'd me there, I would have been in the bush safely during stun, which is why I W'd away even though I was 2. But now, we're both level 2, I can look for a trade. So W auto, shield bash, grasp, sudden impact, way too much damage, click back, and now we're going to be waiting for our next W to come up. So waiting, disengaging him there, and now I don't want the wave to get too close to my tower, so in and out the bush, in and out, trying to pull it up a little bit, and now that my W is back, stacking up my grasp, it's going to be go time very shortly. So Q in, W auto, the W shield bash and grasp and sudden impact is all the damage, that's all you want to be getting, and then disengaging. Unlucky on the Q2 then, would have been nice to hit that one, but still a great trade regardless. But now, he's level 3 very shortly, my W is down, this is when we play respectful. It's okay to give minions during that timer when your W is down. You see I just gave a caster, don't feel like you need to min-max every CS, it's better to prioritize the trades in these volatile matchups. So QM, jump back, hiding out his W, and almost cut it out really well here. But I didn't really realize with the skin, it's hard for it to... I thought the W dropped off now. On normal Renekton skins, not pay-to-win ones, he glows like a big red color when his W is up. But here I could barely tell it was still on, but it doesn't matter, wasn't empowered anyway, so the trade is still good. So looking to wait for my E to come up. It's going to be really hard to kill him in an all-in without my CC ability, without my slow, so I am going to be waiting for that E before I go for my all-in while he's low HP. So if he walks up, I'm going to go now. You can see throwing away the Q on the wave just for the hop, E into Q2 ignite, and then W would kill him here, so he has to flash away. So already in such a good position up against this matchup, and while he's basing a TPing and I'm kind of stomping on him, he has to let all these minions die. So I'm already in such a good position, burned his TP, and gained an XP lead. However, here, I do get ganked by his jungler. A little bit of a warning, they do have ASL jungle. There are a couple ASL jungle one tricks on the Asian servers at the moment, and it does look a lot better than you would expect. He did outjungle my jungler, so we will give him a little bit of credit. So here, he ganks me similar to a Rek'Sai very shortly. He flies over this wall, but we are able to kite it out. So get stunned here, hold on to my W, never want a W early versus Renekton when he has Fury. And when you see him here, like 45, 50, 40, 45 Fury, you do have to be mindful, which is why when he jumped on me, I didn't W straight away. My shield would be instantly gone, and luckily I didn't. I was able to survive this gank by utilizing my shield. And now Lee Sin decided he did not want a 2v2 for some reason. Fine by me. Jungle has final say, and I just need to absorb this pressure. So I thought Aesol, so here, I was wondering if Aesol was still there. Click towards the bush, get my ward down just in case. But Aesol was hiding, I'm pretty sure, on the alcove. He comes in very shortly. So we do have to play around that jungle gap here. I would be hard punishing this Renekton, making it hard for him to crash the wave. But I don't want to get stunned and killed by Aesol, so we do have to play it a bit slower. But the second he recalls when the jungle gap is finished, then we're going to be looking to trade. You'll see very shortly, leading with E, get the slow, and then Q away. Didn't want to give him the W there. And now I'm going to be basing a TP. So the reason the base is good here is if he bases right now, I can one-shot and I TP back. I can one-shot the wave. He'll lose 6 minions. If he hard pushes the wave, I can TP back in time and stop the wave from crashing under my tower. So now I'm coming back, almost full HP. The reason I didn't wait for full is because I didn't want him to get a recall off. And now I've got a strong item and HP advantage. So pull the wave up like this, pull it all the way away from tower, so I can have a permanent freeze with these 5 minions. And that puts a lot of pressure on him to stay. So force the trade here. You can see disengaging it, getting back to my wave. I do want to trade onto him, but if I W, he's going to break my shield anyway. And he's not low enough for lethal range yet. So now I'm going to be waiting mainly for my level 6. Unless he walks up, then I'll be taking a trade. So he walks up here, we force the trade, get a really good chunk onto him, and now he's thinking about basing or maybe going for fruit. Now, I was a little bit careless here on my attack on him. You can see my spells broke the wave, something you can be mindful of. I should have walked up here and been playing in this area, maybe gave a minion or two to make it so that if he does walk up, I can trade onto him away from the wave and don't have to hit a fat EQ onto his whole wave. And W, it's better for me to take my trade up here and maybe just hit the caster minions. So good learning for our future games. But now, because of my mistake, the wave's going to push out towards him, but he doesn't want to give up the cannon wave. He wouldn't lose the entire wave. If he based, he'd probably lose maybe 5 minions, including the cannon, so he decided to stay. Now, initially, I did assume he recalled, so I was planning to proxy here. The reason I didn't proxy, even though I still can, with him showing, is nothing to do with dying to a gank or anything like that. I'd 1v2 these clowns. The reason I didn't proxy is because if I proxy here, I'm kind of locked into basing, because I'd use a lot of abilities, and he can one-shot the wave. And if I proxy and recall, that means he can do the exact same thing, and if we both base, when I'm pickaxing his cloth armor, and he's lower HP than me, that is going to benefit him a lot more than me, so I'd rather stay in the lane and keep playing it out as it is right now. So now trying to get the wave to come up, this minion's chasing me around, but it's okay. I just want the wave to bounce back towards me, that's why I didn't block it up there with that 1 melee. But again, if you walk up to this minion, I'm going to trade onto you, so get his bone plating and then go in here. But now he's level 6. The difference in combat power between a level 6 Renekton is way too big for me to be messing with now. So I still want to be taking short trades, disengaging, but I do have to be a lot more careful of his all-in. Now, the reason I didn't base here is because I am a little bit greedy. He would have one-shot this wave. I would have lost maybe 6 minions of XP. So I decided to stay and try to play it out, as I do have a pretty hefty XP lead. So you'll see very shortly. Looking to take a trade onto him if he walks up. I thought he was going to hit me with that Q there, which is why I W'd it to block all that damage, but he's just out of range. I think he mistimed it, but perfectly fine. So again, the wave, he's trying to crash the wave in base, but I'm not going to make that easy for him. Pulling the wave up here, making it hard for him. And I did think he was going to go to grubs. Not my problem. This is a bad grub timing for Lee Sin. I don't want to get involved. I'm holding my freeze here and looking to deny even more XP than before. Now, in hindsight, I should have matched his recall here. Again, I thought he was going to grubs, so I thought I could just hold this. I should have matched his recall here because he did base and come back, and now I was in a spot where I'm a little bit behind. But we're still able to play it up because we have a big XP advantage, even though we're down in items and HP. we can still play this out. So the trade comes in here, they go into my Lee Sin. You can see I hop away, very scared of the Lee Sin ulti. And actually here I remember saying, I'm very happy with this result. Even though my jungler died, he burned the Renekton ulti, which is the biggest issue with this matchup, where if you overextend your trade even a little bit, when the wave's on the side, he can just pop ulti and run you down, as you are a no-flash champion, and he can just break your shield whenever he wants. But now, luckily, my Lee Sin tactically ruined the baited out the Renekton ulti, so now I can play the game again. So waiting for the cannon, he's trying to punish me for it, but we're not going to give that up. Aesop comes in, so we dash in. I turn onto Aesop, the way squishy a target, and able to burst him down, trade 1 for 1 before I die. I was put in a kind of checkmate position with my wave pushing out. There's no way I can play this out without losing anything, so I decided to play more so for the lane, and maybe even the 1v2 if I got ganked and we were able to get the kill. So there you can see, bursting him down here, ulti him at the very end. The Renekton did block it for him, but I was still able to get the kill. So not too bad. We're going to be basing and coming back to lane now, rushing into Eclipse. So even though I said you don't delay Eclipse, that's still true. But here I know on my next recall, I'm going to have money for Eclipse anyway, so I might as well spend my 300 and grab boots. The difference between getting 300 gold and 600, pretty small for my next base. So just picking up tier 1 boots is not a big deal. If I had enough for tabbies or, something for example, I wouldn't delay Eclipse for it. So here, just tier 1 boots is perfectly fine. So we're coming back to lane. Again, we're going to be looking to force really hard onto him, abuse our XP lead, so leading there with Q into E, dash backwards, not letting the trade go for too long. Not the best trade there, to be honest. I think I over disengaged and didn't utilize my W properly, but still okay. So we're going to push this wave up, really slow pushing. You can see I'm often slow pushing on Ambessa, building these really big waves, and then I can hard push whenever I want, and then looking to punish. So waiting for my next set of cooldowns, auto into Q, into auto into Q, just trying to min-max my range. You can see using the passive range as well, the extra passive range here, I can auto him from this far away. He can't auto me back. Q2 and click back as he tries to. So really important that you practice the spacing on this champion. If he walks up here, we're going to go, our E is, our W is almost up. Q dash backwards. I was worried he would W me there, but now he has no fury. This is my time to go. So I missed my E just out of range, which means I missed my Q. He wasn't slowed, made it a lot harder to hit, but you can see the idea. Playing around Renekton's fury, very, very important in this matchup. So deep ward because I'm planning to play aggressive on my next Ignite timer, kind of playing off of Eclipse and Ignite. Here I don't want to take an all-in. I'm 100 gold off Eclipse, my Ignite's up in 50. Why would I take an all-in now, when in 1 minute I'm going to be significantly stronger than I am now? It's better for me to play it a lot slower. They took a trade onto mid, so I bursted out here. I was really considering ulting there, but he could have got his ulti off during my ulti animation if he was fast enough. Not worth the risk, because again, at 30 seconds, I'm going to have an overwhelming power advantage with my Ignite and Eclipse, so I might as well take the fight then. So base here, TP straight back into the middle of the wave, looking to force onto him now with Eclipse and Ignite. Swap the blue trinket just because I'm level 9. You do want red trinket in the mid game, but I'm going to be laning for another 2 or 3 minutes or so. So I'd rather have blue trinket just to dump it in the enemy jungle, especially against a champion like Aesop. Plays very similar to a Shaco or a Rek'Sai, where they can do big ganks over the wall. So now you can see I'm very hungry for this kill, get my blue trinket down, but a little bit of support gap too. Why is my Yuumi not roaming up top? So we do have to respect the Zillion a bit. So then the wave come in, but I'm again going to make it very painful for this Renekton, pulling it all the way away from tower. So not letting him crash for free. And Biss is really good at blocking away from hitting tower. You can utilize your W. Here I was trying to reach him with ulti, but he was just out of range, keeping back, so we're going to be looking for that trade. So leading with E, Wing in before he gets Fury. You can see outer ring of Q, holding my abilities, not trying to spam them as fast as I can, using them very deliberately with the Q1 there, holding it, waiting for him to dash before I Q2. Really important that you play around your opponent's gap closes as well. And now I have no ability, spacing it out. But again, wasted your Fury, so now it's time for me to go in and out, take a trade. So here, I'm going to be looking to retrade onto him very shortly, pulling out the wave again. You can see just how annoying I'm making it in terms of the wave control. So I want Lee Sin to kick him to me. I think he queued the space and didn't kick. So, a little bit unlucky. Lee Sin is not a champion for everyone, and this is going to be way too hard of a fight to play out. So just going back to top, and luckily again, Lee Sin baited the Renekton ulti. It's such a nice guy, so this is our time to strike. He does have high fury though, so I do have to be very mindful of that. That's what I was thinking at this timer. But if I can bait him to use his fury on the wave with a Q, something like that, then it's going to be go time. I'm really scared of Aesop in this moment, just flying on in after Void Grubs. That's why I'm sitting so far back. He actually has a really good gank by just flying through the wall, and you can see 6 and 2 really spiked at this point. So just really respecting here, you can see, not too happy about it. But I just felt like ASOL had gone by now because I was respecting for so long. So I am going to be looking to play the lane. And Lee Sin's back top now. So if ASOL comes, worst case, maybe I can get a counter gank. And I'm pinging Lee Sin to dive because the Renekton didn't have ulti. This is our time to strike. But the Lee Sin fighting the ASOL top. So ASOL was definitely looking to gank us and guarding the dive. But now we can see it. So forcing hard onto him, unlucky on that Q2. I was waiting for Lee Sin to do his kick, get the kill with passive, and we're in a really good position. So I'll go back to the trade that made this all possible. You can see here, when back here, he used his W onto me, he forced a big trade, so I W after. Always hold your W if they have Fury until after they use W. Even if they disengage, it's better than having your shield broken and then them being able to re-engage onto you. So forcing the big trade here, igniting just for the chunk, even though I can't kill here, even if I hit Q2, and then able to collect this kill. So ASOL comes back up, trying to cover the wave, and I just send ulti onto him straight away. I'm okay to trade 1-for-1 here, as Lee Sin is, ASOL is the main carry in the game, so it's really good to shut him down now and deny all this farm and XP from the enemy team. So now heading back onto the map, the number one thing on my mind is I need to get this tower down ASAP. My bot lane's getting destroyed, my mid jungle is struggling, so I really need to get involved in the game as soon as I can. It's really hard to do that when tier 1 tower is up. You want to be getting the wave under top tier 2 to buy yourself way more time to roam around and make proactive plays. So you can see playing a lot more aggressive, forcing on Renekton as soon as I got back, and looking to play for that tower. Now it's really hard to the tower in front of him, so instead I'm just going to go proxy and buy myself extra time for Geki mid or maybe TPing bot, whatever looks better in the moment. So go for the proxy here. Renekton does try to stop me, pretty sure he had a ward here, and forcing onto me, disengaging here. He broke my shield, so bad W use by me, and bad Q2. But you can see it's still fine. Because we've got the XP lead and the item lead, we can still win trades, weaving him in and out, really looking to punish him here. I could have sent the ulti there. He still had ulti himself, so I might as well wait for my Victor and Lee Sin to join, so it's a guaranteed play. Now Victor did unfortunately fall, not really our problem, and we can finally get this tower down if there was not support gap yet again. So pretty good movements from the Cillian, making it hard for me, and their AD carry swapped as well, but this is going to be okay. So here I decided to base, Bazillion popped out here, stop my recall, so really impactful support play all around I would say. So I still disengage all the way back here, chases me to tier 2. Well, that's what you love to see. But the same thing's happening to their bot lane. I'll zoom in to see the new Victor model, my first time seeing it. And this is actually an okay position to be in. So a lot of top laners feel uncomfortable when the bot lane swaps up into them. But as long as you can hold this pressure without dying, it's not a big deal because that means your team gets to play a 4v3. And in this game, you can see I just spiked. I've got my Cyclo Sword, so I ulti in straight away. I know, like we talked about, during that 1 to 2 item spike, you're just so powerful, don't be afraid to push your limits a bit more. Ulti the Israel straight away from max range before he has a chance to react. Q1 on the outer ring, and chase him down here. You can see holding on to Q2 for as long as I can, because he has a lot of dashes. And then the reason I didn't Q2 him here is because I really assumed Zillion would ulti him. So either Zillion is trolling or a genius, we're not sure, but he held on to his ulti and didn't go there. And now that I W in, he did ulti. So pretty good by Zillion here. But you can just see how strong this champion is during that 1 to 2 item mark. I can just 1v2 these guys relatively easily, as long as I'm weaving it in and out and not over chasing on one target. So they TP in, force onto him, kill with Q2. Here he comes, pop my Eclipse and then into my W, so that I can get max value from the shields and then disengage here. Normally I would go back in, but because the play is going so well right now, if this is a one throw, it's so much better than me taking a risk here, maybe dying, and even if I killed the Silas, it's better for me just to survive here and pick up this wave. So you can see kind of stomping on them a little bit here. Zoom ahead, just clear the wave after that play, and then base and head straight back onto the map. So Hexgate down here, the next objective spawning is Baron. So we're going to be pushing bottom, creating as much pressure as we can, and then looking for a play. So push in bot, and here it is, looking for the flank. You can see, I don't want to be fighting Renekton. I don't want to be pressuring tier 3 for some reason. I want to be pushing in bot and looking for a proactive play here. So there's the ASOL spotted me, zone me out, so back to bottom, push out the wave, and you can see looking for a play again. TP in straight away, don't want to waste time against the Renekton, and able to just kill the Zillion. Ulti the Israel as well. So you can see my mindset in the mid game is very, very high pressure around the map. I don't really care about side lane that much, just pushing the wave, so not only do I not have to deal with it, but the enemy top laner does, and then look for a proactive play around mid. If there's no play, straight back to side, and with a lot of emphasis on being at the big neutral objective around Baron or Dragon. So from this point in the game, we just recalled after Baron, waiting a little bit for my Brutalizer, building into my Profane Hydra as my third item, as I did feel very accelerated in this game, and I'd rather have the ability to one-shot their squishy backline, the Aesol, the Israel, the Zillion, instead of a bit of extra survivability. So coming in, looking to make a mid-bot push, go mid, support at least, you can see I'm really trying to make it 2 lanes. You don't want to do 3 lanes with Baron, someone always dies. I'm trying to at least get Yuumi. I actually wouldn't mind if Corki just split pushed bottom and died, as long as I have the Yuumi, but they did not listen. A little bit of the solo queue special, but it's okay. Push in mid, look for a play here. As long as I'm a part of this fight and not trying to push bottom with Baron or anything like that, it should be okay. So bring the ASL flash, unable to kill him there, should have done my ignite onto him, and then just kill this Renekton. So not too bad. I actually think I overchased here. This is a bit of a mistake. I got too lost in the source, felt way too strong. Definitely underestimated jungle ASL just popping me here. So make sure you're not chasing too hard on Ambessa. She's actually not that good at chasing if you're not already in range of them, especially if you don't have ulti. So better just to play it safe. I thought I could get onto him with my Swifty boots, but that was a bit optimistic. So anyway, base, well, respawn, come straight back onto the map. Dragon's up next, so we want to be involved in this fight. So I'm going to Hexgate over here, looking for the fight here. Looking to send in my ulti onto the enemy backline. So hit the Aesol, the main target here, and get a big burst of damage onto everything. So the reason I didn't Q2 the Israel here is just because of the way his body language was going. I thought he was going to flash or E over the wall, which he actually did. So I Q2'd the Silas instead, and we're able to get a really good fight and potentially end the game off this. So you can see my mindset is very similar. I'd say the easiest part of Ambessa is the mid game and the team fighting. Push inside, look for a play, try to get a creative flank angle, ulti the backline. That's something that you can definitely improve on pretty quickly. The laning phase is the hardest part. That'll take the most effort. But the mid to late game and the team fighting, as long as you're following that formula, you're going to have a high chance of success. So just looking to get the inhibs down, looking to end the game, backing out here, and we're looking for a cheese. A lot of people would think you would base after the Baron, which is how I wanted to stay. I didn't have my item, I'm pretty sure. And even if I did, I'm at a really strong point in this game. I do not need to recall. So just looking to play this slow. Ulti onto Zillion, one-shot him. He's causing too much trouble. Unlucky flash by that guy. And then take out the Silas as well. So pushing in through bot wave. And pretty standard from him. Just looking to end the game. They do try to stop us, but you can see how powerful this champion is, especially with the lethality build. It's really hard for them to do anything, even though I did take a bunch of tower shots for no reason. The damage is just way too high with this build. It's really hard for them to kill you. And you'll see why shortly. During the drafting section, I talk about having enchanters is not too bad, even though you'd rather have engaged supports. When the Yuumi finally does jump onto me for the first time this game, you can see just how strong we are. So just weaving in and out, prioritizing surviving over getting the kill on the Zillion, just kiting it out, waiting for the Yuumi heals, waiting for my Eclipse, waiting for my W, and it's just impossible for them to do anything to me at this point in the game. So we'll take out this Renekton, or the Zillion, look to end the game, and then we'll close out this review. So I'd say the main takeaways from this game, the most important points, was the way I played the early lane against Renekton. I was constantly blocking the wave, making it really hard for him. I forced a lot of early trades 1 to 2 before he had all of his abilities and his fury stacked up, and I made it to the point where I had an XP advantage over him the entire game. And then once the mid game started, even though my teammates were behind, I was constantly looking to push him bottom, make Renekton answer, make him completely useless, and then look for a proactive play on their team, and constantly attack them around neutral objectives. Next up, we have how to counter Ambessa. Now, even though this champion is one of the best blind picks in the game for a melee champion, that doesn't mean she's unbeatable in lane. You just need to know what to look out for. And if you can ever force extended trades against her, so prioritizing champions that can do that, champs like Aurelia, champs like Renekton can force a big trade, Warwick, champs like Olaf even, or Darius, even though I wouldn't say those matchups are favored for you, if you can force a extended trade against her by punishing her cooldowns or getting behind her, forcing a long trade, that's going to be really good for you. You don't want to hit a Q on Olaf, run up an E, and run away, get your head chopped off by Ambessa's spells. You want to be forcing extended all-ins, especially from level 1 if you can. So look for a really big level 1 trade, but even if you can't, 3-wave crash, let the wave come back in, force an extended all-in, running them down the lane. That's going to be really important on a lot of champions. Now, even if you don't have a champ that can play that, there are some other things you can look to do. Trying to punish her W is a good start, because pretty much every champ you play, your trading ability is going to be a shorter cooldown than her W. So you want to be forcing a trade onto her, baiting out her W, and then really looking to punish that spell when it's on cooldown. It has an 18-second cooldown at rank 1, so if she ever walks up to the wave and your spells come back up, then you can look to punish her. So Olaf's a good example. You toss a Q at her, and you walk towards her. If she uses W, you can click back, then your Q will be back up, even if you don't pick it up, before her W, forcing an extended trade again. Wukong E is another one. E onto it, shield W, disengage with W, then you can force a big trade with your E. You can kind of see the pattern there. Now, in terms of itemization, I never recommend to build healing cut against this champion. In terms of the early lane, the healing isn't really that much, you don't need it at all, but if you can build Serpent's Fang on your champion, then definitely look to do so. I know not a lot of top lane champions can do it, but I've seen Galban King on Garen go as its first item, you can build it on Jay second or third, you can build it on Wukong even as your second item. Really impactful build, especially if she goes Eclipse in her W, Serpent's Fang will give you a ton of value. Now, playing around her Q2 is also important. At the start, when nobody knew what she did, very easy to hit it, but now when you verse good players, they know when you're going to be using Q2, they're pre-dodging it, so make sure you're trying to do that, trying to dodge before she throws it out. It's a very fast ability, but if you're moving in an erratic way, it can be really hard for her to do so. Now, in terms of the wave control against her, because every single one of her abilities, I guess except ulti, is a big AoE spell, you can make her break the wave. So if you want the wave to come back towards you, you can bait her to trade in the wave, her spells are going to beat it up, the wave will come back to you, then you can look to freeze, or if she has a freeze as well, and you want her to break it, you can go up, take a big trade, and even if you lose the trade, maybe you're behind or in a bad matchup, even if you take a bad trade, she'll break that freeze, it'll start bouncing back towards you, so you can just base and come back, catch a wave inside of your tower. So trying to bait her to use her abilities on the wave can be a good trick if you want the wave to start coming back to you. Next up, we're going to be covering drafting, so you know the best and the worst times to play this champion in solo queue, or maybe even clash or team play with the boys. Now, I would recommend banning, I'd say either Warwick or Renekton, if you're looking to play her in solo queue. Warwick right now, very popular, he did just get that OP buff, he was already broken before that, but the buff increases play rate, so Warwick can be a great ban. Renekton also a good ban as well, especially if you verse him very often. Now, for jungle, what you want to be playing with on your team from all positions is going to be dive. But starting with jungle, you want to be playing with dive champions, so champs that go in and get stuck in on their backline, champs like Vi, champs like Zac, even a champ like Karthus, and he doesn't really go in, of course, but he can facilitate your dive by just doing a point-click AoE damage on their whole team. Can't really argue against that. So any champion that can go in or help you when you go in is going to be very useful for you. So for mid, there's going to be champs like Ahri, champs like Silas, Galio, Akali, pretty much any champion that wants to click forward and back you up or go in first is going to be really easy for you to play with. So from AD carry, champs like Kai'Sa, or maybe a champ like Jinx or Ashe that can follow you up with their range abilities. Jinx ulti and resets or Ashe ulti can be useful as well. And for support, champs like Nautilus, champs like Ralph, champs like Alistair. I actually think Nautilus in particular is going to be a combo in pro play. Ambessa with Nautilus, Nautilus ulti into Ambessa ulti guaranteed chain CC for like 4 seconds. Really hard to play against for a backline champion. Now, as for what she's bad with, the champs you don't want to see on your team, that's going to be champions that have low threat on the backline. So a champion like Kindred, champ like Teemo, champ like Graves Jungle is going to be really hard to play with. I would never not pick Ambessa just because you have a champ like that, as again, very stable blind, very consistent champion, and you'd rather be Ambessa with a Kindred or a Teemo than a champ like Camille, but still, it's a champion to watch out for if you are deciding between a couple champs in your pool. Now for mid, it's going to be champions that really heavily rely on PU on the backline and can't follow you up. So champs like Cassiopeia, champs like Veigar can be a little bit tricky. From AD carry, very similar. Champs like Aphelios, champs like Smolder, very slow-paced scaling champions that do like to get peeled, and Besso's not going to be peeling them unless they're just hard carrying you. So a champion that's not a priority for you to play with. And for support, champs that don't dive in with you. I'd say you'd rather have an enchanter than a hook champion. So a champ like Blitzcrank or Thresh feels particularly bad as they can't really follow you up or do anything like that. Or at least a Soraka, you're going to get the ulti. You might get a Lulu ulti if you have an enchanter. Blitz or Thresh, pretty much useless unless they're carrying the game anyway. Moving on to the enemy team, and we'll start with champions that you do want to play against. For top lane, it's going to be pretty much any champion that the matchup is good from our matchup section, but especially skill shot based champions that are immobile. So champs like Mordekaiser, champs like Cho'Gath, really hard for them to hit anything on you, really hard for them to get away from you if you're running them down. So those matchups in particular will be really good for you. Now for jungle, it's going to be low threat, low CC. So champs like Nidalee, champs like Graves can be very easy for you to do what you want to do in a team fight, and their damage isn't really that high against you. You can dodge their skill shots like the Nidalee Spear, the Graves Q with your dashes, so really good pick into them. Now for mid, it's going to be low threat, so champs like Victor, as soon as they nerf him, he's not OP, champs like Lux, champs like Asol, you can have a lot of value into them, as they're really squishy and mobile backline champs, so that you can easily dive onto them, which is pretty rare for a bruiser. Bruisers versing champs like Asol specifically can be really annoying, but because you can just bypass all the crap they put on the floor, those champs, I'd say Ambessa does better into those champs than most top laners. Now for AD carry, very similar, a mobile backline champs like a Jinx, a Phelios, a Jhin, a lot of value up against them. And for support, similar to jungle, low threat, low CC. So a champion like Lux, a champion like Nami's support, where you can just dodge their abilities. Really hard for them to lock you down, very easy for you to one-shot them, especially with the lethality build. Those are the types of champions that you want to see on the enemy team. Now, as for what you don't want to play against, and I'll say this is the most important section in terms of drafting for Ambessa, for top lane, it's going to be champions with high early threat and champs that can run you down, especially later on. So champs like Warwick, champs like Renekton. Not only can they beat you in the early lane, but they can run you down. Renekton ulti, Warwick with Bork and lethal tempo can easily run you down for the majority of the game if you don't have a lead. And because they win the matchup, very hard to get a lead against them. Now for jungle, it's going to be high CC and disengage. So actually I found champions like Fiddle and Zyra to be particularly annoying. Zyra, you can snipe her with ulti, but you're still fighting in her domain or her plant. Can be really, really frustrating to play against. Now for mid, it's going to be champions with insane lockdown. So Malzahar or Lissandra, really hard to play against. You can buff your ulti through Malzahar and Lissandra combo, but that's up to them, right? Malzahar doesn't have to just ulti straight away. He can hold on to it and time it perfectly. So it's really the agency is on them to shut you down in a team fight. Now, Yone is also really annoying, not just in top but for mid as well, because he can just rock up in side lane, even if you won your lane, unless you're just so far ahead to the point where it doesn't matter. He can just beat you inside 100 to 0 you with Bork and chase you down. Really annoying champion in general for Ambessa. Now for AD carry, it's going to be champs that are very slippery, so champs like Kai'Sa, even champs like Nyla can be quite tricky for you. Champs that can disengage, even Tristana, but Tristana's not too bad because her damage is a lot lower, her burst, upfront burst is lower than Kai'Sa or Nyla, so I'd say those champs stand out, but AD carry matters the least in terms of what you're playing up against. And for support, it's going to be disengage, so champs like Alistair can be really annoying, champs like Poppy in any role can be tricky, but support as well. She can just disengage with a W, alter your way. Really annoying champions, high disengage like a Alistair, a Braum, a Poppy, are definitely champs to be wary of. Now, we're going to be wrapping up this guide with the main takeaways, just to keep them fresh in your mind before you queue up and play a game of this champion. Now, number one for the early game is I really want you to focus for your learning when to be short trading and when to be long trading in lane. Because Ambessa can do both, and it really depends on the matchup, how strong you are, things like that. But try to think about it more so from a matchup point of view until you get a lead. So if you're playing up against a champion with lethal tempo or conqueror, probably they're going to be favored in an all-in, where a champion with grasp or fleet, or a champion where they're just famous for short trading. So a champion like Camille normally wants to take a short trade, especially with grasp and W. Probably you can take a long trade against her most of the time, especially if your passive is down. But if she ran conqueror and ignite, that's going to be a different story. So it's really important that you figure out when to take long trades or short trades, because I've seen a lot of students, especially you saw in the laning phase section, they take a long trade when it should be a short one and get killed for it, or maybe they take a short trade when it should have been a long one and miss out on a potential solo kill. Now, for the mid game, the number one takeaway is definitely going to be the way you approach team fights. You always want to be looking with your sweeper, with your pinks, get into these creative flank positions during that 1 to 2 item spike, especially, and trying to get onto the backline. It's really hard for them to blow you up in the early portion of the mid game when everyone has one item between 1 to 2. So if you can get that angle and you can get onto the backline, you can cause a lot of chaos in the game. Now, in terms of the champ select, her being one of the best blind picks in the game is definitely an important takeaway for you, because if you do play it and you get shit on in a bunch of different matchups because you're still learning the champion, don't feel like, this matchup's so hard, or maybe she's not that good of a blind pick. It's really important that you figure out the bad matchups and put the time into actually getting good at this champion, because once you have built that knowledge of how to play well in the lane and how to play up against the counter picks like the Aurelia or the Renekton, you're going to have yourself a great blind pick for life, because this champion, in my opinion, is going to be good in the majority of seasons. She's going to be very similar to an Aatrox Aatrox, where he's in his weakest state, but if you imagine Aatrox throughout the past 4 or 5 years, he's been pretty good for the majority of seasons, and Bessa is going to be no different. She might be broken right now, next season she might be a little bit weaker, but she's always going to be a great champion and a strong blind pick, so definitely worth to put the time into it and build knowledge for all of those matchups. And for our final point, you spike hardest, I would say, over every champion in the game that you're going to play at level 9 and Eclipse. So the faster you get that, the better. But once you have that spike, you want to be speeding up the game. Try to press your opponent, poke them on the tower, or just be pushing in the wave and looking to fight, early skirmish, maybe second Void Grubs or Herald. Fight every objective that you can at that spike, and try to be as impactful as possible. Don't just chill and play it slow and farm camps. Once you have that level 9 Eclipse spike, you want to be forcing as hard as you can. Alright team, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the final champion guide of the year. And if I missed out on your main, or there's a champion you'd like to see me cover next, just let me know down in the comments below. I'll cover the champions that get the most requests. Really pumped to get some more guides done next season, and I'll see you all then.